Hi guys, welcome to my 2024 reading wrap-up. I'm going to talk about every book that I read this year, and it was not a lot. I had a really bad reading year, and that's fine because that happens sometimes. I had other things going on, and I just need to make it my New Year's resolution to be better about reading next year. So I read 13 books and DNF'd 2. And I have to say that Stephen King's 2 books that I read put me in a reading slump. Not gonna blame it on him, so don't come for me, but I think I learned he might not be for me. My reading goal was 30, so I really missed that by a lot. Normally I read like 25 to 30 books a year. It was just bad this year. So I actually had great momentum at the beginning of the year. I started the year by reading 3 thriller books. I have a video on that if you want to go watch it and watch me read it more in depth. But I started the year with Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell, which I gave 3 stars. So this book is about this girl named Ellie who goes missing when she's 15, and it's a dual timeline with her point of view at the time she goes missing and her mom Laurel's point of view, trying to figure out what happened to her. I gave it 3 stars because it wasn't like the best thing I've ever read. It was definitely entertaining, but it had a trope in it that I really don't like, and that definitely knocked a star off. I'm not going to say what it is because it's kind of a spoiler, but it's like something that happens a lot in thriller books that I just like really don't like reading about. The ending is really cute. I would, recommend it. Like, it was good, but it wasn't a 5-star book. Then I read The Only One Left by Riley Sager, which I really liked. I gave it 4 stars. And this book is about a caregiver named Kit who we find out has been on unpaid leave for 6 months because she had an incident with her last patient, but she is called to work again to take care of this town legend named Lenora Hope. And Lenora is like a town legend for killing her whole family, so obviously no one wants to care for her. So Kit is kind of the last person and she really needs a job, so she says yes. And she starts working there and is kind of unraveling all the secrets about the murders, trying to figure out what happened. But this was a page turner for me. I really liked it. It was really entertaining. I liked all of the twists. There definitely were some that I didn't see coming. Definitely would recommend that one. Then I read Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister, which I gave 4 stars, and this starts on Halloween, so I would definitely recommend reading this in the fall time. So it's about a mom named Jennifer who is looking out her window on Halloween and sees her son stab someone. And then he gets arrested. She's so confused trying to figure out what happened. She goes to sleep. She wakes up. It's the day before. So it's kind of like a time travel book, and each time she goes to sleep, she wakes up and it's some length of time before. So it's not a Groundhog Day. It's like going back in time. And as she's going back in time, she's trying to figure out why her son stabbed that person, who it is, how she can prevent it from happening in the future. So if you like time travel, I would definitely recommend that book. It also was a page turner. I read it really quickly. Then I read Transcendent Kingdom by Ya Jesse. This is about Gifty, who is from a Ghanaian family living in California. I believe she was born in the US, but her parents and brother were born in Ghana and immigrated. And she's a PhD student studying addictive behavior in mice, and we find out that her brother has addiction problems, so that probably led to this interest. It's really interesting. It discusses American culture's relation to mental health versus Ghana's relation to mental health, and how she kind of has a different view on it than her parents. It also discusses her relationship to religion and how different that is from the other PhD students' relationship to religion. Like, she obviously was grown up in a really religious family, and Ghana has a very different outlook on religion than PhD Stanford students would. But yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It was a good book, not 5 stars. Wasn't completely blown away, but I really like her as an author because Homegoing is another book that I read by her last year, and it is one of my favorite books ever, so I would definitely recommend Homegoing. Then I read Freedom is a Constant Struggle by Angela Davis. Didn't rate this one. It's basically a collection of speeches and essays by her. I started reading it to learn more about the Israel and Palestine conflict, and it didn't really explain that in depth. It just kind of touched on it and how it related to like the prison industrial complex in the United States. But if you want to learn more about kind of what she stood for and her speeches, it definitely expanded my mind and was really interesting and kind of touched on topics that I hadn't really heard about before. Then I read Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence, and I gave this 3 stars. This is about Constance and Clifford Chatterley, and Clifford is not able to have kids, so he lets his wife, I don't know what I can say on here, but Clifford lets his wife other men so that she can get pregnant and that they can raise a child together. And it's kind of about her, forming a relationship with someone that she's doing that with and how their marriage falls apart. Again, 3 stars, wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I ended up liking some aspects of it. Then I read Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin, which I read in one day, gave 5 stars. It's one of my favorite books of all time. It totally blew me away. I just love James Baldwin so much. So it's about this expat named David who's living in Paris, and he meets Giovanni and they form a relationship. And David is actually supposed to be marrying this woman named Hella who is on vacation in Spain, and while she's gone he has this relationship with Giovanni and he really is struggling to come to terms with his sexuality. He's a really frustrating character because he blames Giovanni for his sexuality, but because of the time period, you can't really blame him. And it just had beautiful descriptions of Paris. Like, I could picture where they were perfectly because I've been there before. It was a great exploration of sexuality. So beautiful. He really knows how to write romance. Just 5 out of 5 would recommend. Then I read A Court of Mist and Fury, which I gave 4 stars. I definitely like this one more than the first book, but I still haven't picked up the third one. I don't know what it is, if it's too long. I'm just like not super into it, but it was entertaining. And I'm not going to summarize that because it's the second in a series and everyone has read it. Then I read The Story Life of A.J. Fikry, which I gave 4 stars. I also really like this one. It was super easy to read and wholesome. And I actually picked this up because it is written by Gabrielle Zevin, who wrote Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. That is one of my favorite books of all time, so I definitely wanted to pick up something else by her. So this book is about a man named A.J. Fikry who runs a bookstore on a small island, and he's recently widowed, so he's a really grumpy man. The store is called Island Books and it's really struggling with sales, and one day something happens which completely changes his life, and it's just a story about friendships, relationships, love. It's a really heartwarming, feel-good story. I don't want to spoil anything, but if you want something light that will make you feel good, I would recommend it. Then I read The Girls by Emma Cline, which I gave 4 stars. And this one definitely took me like a little bit longer to read, but it was really interesting. So it's loosely based on the Manson family murders, and it's more so based on how these girls joined the cult and like the psychological state that they were in and the relationships with their families that they were in for them to be able to kind of be brainwashed by this man. So the protagonist is a 14-year-old girl named Evie who is going through like her rebellious teenage girl phase. She's really mad at her mom because her mom has a new boyfriend and is kind of neglecting her. And she sees these girls in a park one day and just becomes enamored by them. And one of the girls is named Susie and she's just obsessed with her. And Susie kind of takes her in and introduces her to the cult leader and the cult life. And it's a dual timeline with that happening and then grown up Evie kind of now reflecting on it. And it's a story about how she got involved in the murders and how she felt after. So I definitely thought it was interesting. Just like kind of took me a while to read, but I would recommend it if you're interested in that era. Then I read Cleopatra and Frankenstein, and I DNF'd it because I was super bored. It was literally just about this couple and nothing happened. I got like 200 pages into it, I think, and I was just like, I'm not enjoying this at all. So yeah, DNF'd it. Then I read Billy Summers by Stephen King, which I gave 4 stars, and this was good. It also just took me a really long time to read. I think his writing style just takes me a while and he goes off on tangents a lot, which I don't really like. But this is about an assassin named Billy Summers who is about to retire, but he gets a job offer that he can't turn down because it's so high. I think it's like $1 million. And because it's so high for one person, he's very skeptical of it, but he has to take it, and he's just kind of trying to figure out why the price is so high. And there are a lot of twists and turns and people that he meets, and I would recommend it if you like Stephen King. It's good. Then I read Good Material by Dolly Alderton. I love her. I gave it 4 stars. And this is really interesting because it's from the perspective of a man, because everything I know about love is her memoir, so it's from her perspective. And then Ghost is a fiction book, but it's from the perspective of a woman that's like kind of similar to her. So it was cool to get this perspective, and she did such a good job. It's so funny. Like, I always recommend this book. And it's about a 35-year-old man who just got dumped by his long-term girlfriend that he thought he was gonna marry. He's a comedian, but his career is tanking. So he's definitely in his flop era, and it's just like funny to read because he's getting old. He's not getting any comedy jobs. He doesn't have any money, and he's trying to date, and it's the same humor as other books, which I really like, but just a different perspective, so I would definitely recommend that. Then I read Boy Parts by Eliza Clark, and I love this. I gave it 4 stars. I want it to be a movie so badly. Like, if anyone wants to make a movie with me, hit me up. And this is about an extremely unlikable character named Irina, and she takes explicit photos of men. That's her job. She meets them out in public and convinces them to let her take photos of them, and then she invites them to her apartment and she puts them in these really vulnerable positions to take photos. So it's a lot about power and control, and she basically does all these terrible things to men because she wants them to be afraid of her, and they never are. So she keeps progressing and keeps going further and further with what she's doing to them. And it's an interesting format because she gets invited to join an art show, so she's kind of looking through all of her old files, and each chapter is kind of about like a different person that's in the photographs that she's looking at. But if you like Otessa Moshfegh, freaky, unlikable character, then you would definitely like this book. Then I read Misery by Stephen King, which I DNF'd. I actually liked the beginning, but it just kept going, and again with the tangents, I just couldn't with the tangents, and I was actually almost done with it and I just didn't care. I didn't care about the ending, which is so bad because I know this book is so iconic, but it put me in such a reading slump. It took me like 4 months to read, and then I was like, why am I reading this? So I may go back to it someday, but not right now. So then I started reading The Book Thief, and I'm only a couple pages into it, and I'm just hoping that this gets me to read again. I'm gonna be on a plane. I'm going to Florida for New Year's, so I hope that just being stuck on a plane for 5 hours will force me to read. But yeah, the second half of this year was really bad. Like, the last full book I read was Boy Parts, which was in September, I think. So I'm just crossing my fingers that the plane makes me finish a book, gets me back into reading, because next year I want to read The Odyssey because of the movie that's coming out. So I bought that, and I actually got this cute little book stamp for Christmas, so I'll show it to you guys. It says from the Library of Honor Futrells, and that's so cute. And then the new Hunger Games book also comes out in 2025, so that one I will be vlogging for sure. I'm gonna buy it the day of, or pre-order it honestly, and then I will go through that one really quickly. So just need to get a couple books in before then. But please let me know your favorite books that you read this year. I really need recommendations, clearly some page turners that will get me back into reading because the slump was bad this year. But please subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and like this video if you liked it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!